Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Always got to get my catchphrase in on the Gothenburg beer videos. There's just so much beer up there, it has become a bit of a catchphrase for the channel. And for this review we're going to return to a brewery that you've seen me review a good number of beers from. This must be review number 20 or so that I've done from this brewery, and we're returning to a series that I've reviewed very regularly for you over the last couple of months. So for this review then, we are going to go back to OO Brewing, and we're having a taste of another member of the 50/50 series. So this month we have the 50/50 Citra Chinook. As always, this beer comes in at 6.5% ABV. It's a New England style IPA, and hopefully this is another very nice one. Last month's iteration was the Mosaic Nelson Sauvin, but this particular beer was released on the 1st of August 2020 as part of the Lokaler Småskaligt assortiment, and it was released along with the second release from the 100 series, the 100 Idaho 7, and that was a really interesting beer. That Idaho 7 is a really lovely hop, but one that I'd never tried on its own before, and as I've said to you in previous videos from the 100 and from the 50/50 series, these kind of beers are great because they teach you a little bit about hop pairings, and you can also use them to kind of educate yourself about the properties of different hops as well. But as for the hops in this one, you know, Citra is the hop we all kind of know and love, you know, mainly mangoes, a little bit of a kind of darker passion fruity note to it sometimes as well. You sometimes get a bit of lemon lime and you know, a bit of gooseberry and lychee and things like that. It's a very complex hop if you use it on your own, while you have Chinook as well, which is known, it was mainly used as a bittering hop, Chinook, but it can be used as an aroma hop as well. That's mainly got quite a strong grapefruity character to it, and it's known for its big kind of piney resinous and sometimes slightly spicy floral notes as well. Both of these are very high in alpha acid. I think, you know, usually Citra is between kind of 12 and 14, maybe 11 to 14% alpha acid, whereas Chinook I think comes in usually about the sort of between 12 and 14 as well actually. But you know, these are two classic hops. Citra's been around for a long time, Chinook has also been around for a very long time, both American, and yeah, hopefully this makes for another very interesting iteration of the 50/50 series. I always enjoy reviewing these, as I say, for educational purposes, as I like to put it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this one. I really enjoy this 50/50 series, and as I've told you before, OO Brewing are releasing one of these every month through the Lokaler Småskaligt assortment. I'm not sure what the, I can't remember what the next one is actually, but I've already put it in my list for my order on the 1st of September. But yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from OO Brewing before. You will definitely see more from these guys in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about OO Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So OO Brewing, as I've told you before, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg in Sweden on the west coast, and the company was founded back in 2011 by Olaf and Ollie Anderson, who are childhood friends, and for many years they were also avid home brewers. But both of them state that they'd always been very interested in beers, and Ollie has apparently been heavily involved in the Gothenburg beer scene since pre-drinking age. He was the original head brewer at Stigbergets Brewery, and the one that developed the GBG Beer Week and the Amazing Haze, which are two of the kind of cult classic Swedish New England IPAs. Around the same time, he also developed the Narangi, which is released under the OO name, and that is another one of the, what I would consider the four cult classic Swedish New England IPAs, along with Opigård's New Sweden IPA. But this was where the original OO beers were produced. Back in those days you were getting the Ekta Pills, you were getting the Muscles and the Evergreen, which were both West Coast style IPAs and very nice. I do wish that they would bring those back actually. But Ola of course concentrates on the brewing side of things. and he's a very talented brewer at that, whereas Olaf manages the business side of the brewery. From what I understand, he still works for a marketing agency in Copenhagen, and you know, he comes over to Gothenburg but mainly works from distance, from what I understand. But apparently these guys just started out with the idea that they were going to make beers that they would enjoy to drink themselves. But having done the whole kind of gypsy contract brewing, whatever you want to call it, at Stigbergets facility, in April of 2017, Ole took the decision to leave Stigbergets and invest his time fully with OO Brewing, and the company invested in their own physical brewery in the Hisingen area next to the Tingstedt Bridge, and it's equipped with a 2,000 litre brewing system, which means they can brew up to 500,000 litres of beer per year. In their first year in there, 2018, they produced around 100,000 litres of beer, and they are just kind of gradually expanding that up to capacity over the next few years. As of August 2020, when I'm producing this review for you, they've produced around 65 different kinds of beer, but yeah, they are getting their name out there a little bit more and starting to export a little bit in things too. But yeah, probably the beer I would recommend for you to try from these guys, the Narangi IPA is probably the best known one. If you can try some from the 100 and the 50/50 series, those are also definitely worth it too. The Ecta Pils is Peter, the master of Hoppet's favourite craft pilsner. I quite like it as well, but it's quite a dry pilsner compared to some of the other ones that I've had. They've got the Pivot Pils, which is a regular in Systembolaget. I do quite like that one as well. So yeah, these guys mainly known for their kind of New England style IPAs, and that's the sort of beer style that Ole Anderson really kind of, you know, brought into Sweden. He was the one that really did that and brought the haze craze to Sweden, if you like. But when these guys try different styles of beer, they always tend to be very good as well. Probably my favourite IPA that I've had from these guys in recent times was the Charismatico. That was really, really nicely done. But I'd love to see them do a proper West Coast IPA again. If they could bring back the Muscles or the Evergreen, that would be a really, really nice thing for them to do. So yeah, a lovely brewery, this one that I always enjoy trying different beers from, and one that I highly recommend you check out if you're interested in Swedish craft beer, or if you find yourself in Gothenburg. They kind of have their unofficial tap room, if you like, at the Bar Kino Hagebjörn's Cafe, which is where the Stigbergets beers were originally brewed. From what I understand, it was of course owned by Richard Simonsson and Niels Hultkrantz, who are the main owners of its Stigbergets brewery. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about OO Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. And yeah, hopefully at some point I can get Ole Anderson on the channel to do a Meet the Brewery segment. That would be awesome to get him on, and if we can, Olaf as well. I'm not sure how possible it is to get them together, but that would be pretty damn cool actually, to have both of them to do a Meet the Brewery segment. I'll need to message them about that and see what we can do. But yeah, check out the website as I said, but let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer then. So as always, the artwork on this particular series is pretty plain. You know, they've got all the different hops colour coded. Citra of course is yellow in this series, and Chinook is this kind of tan leathery brown colour. You can see on the back here is the typical kind of OO Brewing label. OO of course standing for Olaf and Ole. But yeah, 6.5% New England IPA, this one, with Citra and Chinook hops. So yeah, 440 milliliter can, this one, and I believe that I bought this beer for either 40 or 45 Swedish kroners, which is the typical price you're going to pay for a 440 IPA these days. But yeah, let's get it out and into the glass and see how we get on. Curious to see what this beer has in store for us, but I've got a feeling this one might be a little bit of a nostalgia trip. So yeah, this should be very, very nice. But yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you would expect from a New England IPA, this is poured a lovely kind of, I would say quite a dark yellowy colour, this one. If we shine the light through it, yeah, mainly dark yellow rather than having a bit of an orangey edge to it. You can see there's a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say cream coloured head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but you know, overall it looks pretty typical of what you'd expect from a New England IPA these days. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a good degree of haze to this one. As I've told you in previous videos, the level of haze that you'll get out of a New England IPA tends to be related to the alcohol content. The higher the alcohol, the more wheat you have, the more oats you have, thus the more hazy the beer is itself. But this one, for a 6.5%er, yeah, it's fairly hazy. It is fairly hazy, and you'll notice that in the kind of more concentrated part of it there, it does have a little bit of an orangey tinge to it. But yeah, nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider the style. But let's have a look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this one. This one should be a properly kind of old school beer. Oh yeah, this one, I wasn't expecting that from this, I have to say. Now, I get the impression from the aroma here that probably both of the hops have been added later on. There probably will have been a small amount of these added in the kind of early part of the boil. The key thing with hops when you're brewing the beer is the earlier in the boil, the more bitterness you'll get out of them. Whereas if you add them later in the boil, usually with IPAs it's after the first hour. IPAs are usually a kind of a 90-minute boil. But usually, if you add them after the first hour, that's when you start to get the flavour and aroma kind of properties coming out of them, rather than the bitterness properties, of course. So yeah, I get the feeling with this one that both of these hops have been added mainly after the first hour, because you don't get this beer. Chinook, of course, has that reputation of being a big dank beast, you know, a big dank grapefruity beast, and you know, in the case of this beer, you really don't get too much of that. This beer actually comes across as really soft and juicy, so to me that's a kind of telltale sign that the majority of the hops in this have been added after the after the hour mark. It really comes across as very, very soft and juicy, this one, to be honest with you. And it's interesting that, because the 100 Idaho 7 did have a good little bit of a floral, spicy character to it. That was one of the things I was really surprised about with that hop, actually. And you know, depending on what hops they're using, I'm sure they will tweak when they add the hops and also the malt base a little bit to kind of suit the profiles of the hops that they're using. But yeah, this one really is very soft and juicy, and I expected a bit of that from the Citra, but I thought the Chinook would give you a good bit more bitterness than you are actually getting out of the aroma here. So yeah, on the malty side of things then, this is, again, it's fairly typical. You get a nice little bit of pale malt in there, you can smell a little bit of the thicker wheat, there's a wee touch of a kind of spicy quality to it, you've got some nice kind of oaty creaminess in there, a little bit of pale malt, and you've also got a wee bit of a kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive biscuit quality in there. These are all typical elements of the New England IPA. For me though, this one, it's got a little bit of kind of aromaticity from the wheat. Yeah, the wheat actually, I think this one's got a lovely smoothness to the wheat as well, but it's fairly well balanced. You do get a good bit of the smoothness from the oats and the creaminess from the oats, but you do have a bit of the kind of smoother wheaty qualities as well. It strikes me as very well balanced, and it's only, you know, it's only when you take it in a little bit more deeply you start to get the kind of, you start to get a little bit of the, how would you say, a little bit of sweetness out of this. There's a wee touch of a biscuity note to it, a little bit of that kind of Werther's Originally kind of thing that you sometimes get from the New England IPAs. But yeah, mainly this is quite a kind of, it actually seems to lean a little bit towards the pale malty side of things for me, which is quite interesting. I do get quite a bit of pale malty character out of this one, and the wheat and the oats are kind of smoothing that out a bit. So yeah, quite a soft malt base on this one in my mind, so I like that about this. So definitely a smoother and kind of juicier beer than I was expecting when Chinook was part of the equation. So yeah, nice surprise there. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, there is a wee touch of earthiness to it. It actually comes across as quite leafy and floral on the green side of the hops as well. There's a nice little bit of a grassy quality to the beer too. So yeah, it really is very kind of unassuming, this one. It's definitely nowhere near the most pungent beer that I've had, the most pungent IPA that I've had from OO Brewing, and it's also nowhere near the most pungent that I've had from either the 100 or the 50/50 series. So yeah, yeah, the aroma of this one, for me, it's really, you have to go quite deep into it to get the kind of fruity notes out of the beer. So for me, You can pick up a little bit of that darker grapefruit, which I would be guessing is the Chinook, but at the same time, a little bit of it will come from the Citra, but you've got a lovely kind of juicy mango note to the beer. You've got a few lighter things like apricots and papayas and stuff, but you've also got a wee bit of a kind of gooseberry, kind of lychee-ish note out of this one. Sometimes Citra can give you a little bit of a lemon lime, and you do get a wee bit of a grassy, zesty quality out of the beer, but that's quite minimal for me. Mainly, it's a soft mango, a little bit of a kind of lighter papaya type note out of it, and then you've got a kind of gooseberry lychee. I'd say the Citra, the softer elements of the Citra are really coming out in this one. There's not a lot in terms of aroma from the Chinook, I think, and that was not what I would have expected from this beer at all, I have to say. When you sugar the beer up, it almost comes across as a little bit perfumey in a number of ways, but yeah, you do start to get a little bit of the darker grapefruity element from the Chinook. But yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma from this one, but this is a hell of a lot softer and kind of less assuming than I thought it was going to be when, you know, just from the preconceptions I had of the hops. Icy's out there, yeah, so yeah, but yeah, an interesting aroma this one. Take a bit of time to enjoy it, but we're going to taste this beer now and see how we get on. So this one is the 50/50 Citra Chinook IPA, coming in at 6.5% ABV, part of the 50/50 series, released in August of 2020 through Systembolaget here in Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Sláinte skål. Oh yeah, I'll tell you something, it does, it's interesting to see Chinook used as an aroma hop as well. I think I have had it in one or two beers in fairness, but yeah, you'll notice the Chinook, you'll see with this beer, it really has an effect on the aftertaste. You really start to get the kind of more dank, florally, piney, resinous notes out of this one in the aftertaste. I've only taken one sip of this beer, but already you do get that really dark note out of this. I'm just surprised when it comes out so prominently in the flavour. It's just interesting that it doesn't come out so much in the aroma. Of course, it could be the converse of what I said earlier. The reverse, I should say. Bad English, but yeah, it could be the reverse of what I said earlier. Maybe the Chinook has been added earlier on, and you will find this beer really does get a bit drier the further you go into it with the aftertaste. But yeah, I like this one actually. It's got a lovely balance between being a bit more kind of dank and beastie and things like that, and having a little bit more kind of juiciness to it. It's got a really lovely balance to it. So thumbs up to OO Brewing for this one. This is a kind of more classic mix. The Nelson Sauvin Mosaic that was out last month, you know, it was really good actually. I did enjoy that one. This one's definitely a bit more kind of, it comes across as a little bit more bitter in my mind, but I'm questioning whether that's IBU or whether it's just the Chinook and the flavour of the Chinook that's giving you that. But yeah, this one strikes me as being a lot more dry than other 50/50s that I'd had. But yeah, I like how this one this is one of these ones where the two hops kind of contrast each other really quite well. And that's what I really like about this one. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this beer then for you. So straight away with this beer, as you'll usually get, you can feel that pale malty quality, that blankets the middle of your tongue. As you go towards the back of the palate, the back third of your tongue has that slightly thicker, white bready, wheaty sort of thing. There's a few kind of grainy elements in there, and a little bit of a kind of bitey, spicy thing from the wheat as well. But as you move further forward out of that back third of your tongue into the middle third of your tongue, you can feel a little bit of the kind of pale malty quality there. And again, as you move towards the front of that middle third of your tongue, it kind of gradually thickens up and you get a bit more of the kind of oaty creaminess out of the beer. There is a wee touch of sweetness to it. So yeah, this one does have a little bit, I hesitate to call it caramel, but it does have a wee bit of a kind of oily McVitie's Digestive biscuity kind of thing. It's got a wee bit of a kind of Werther's Original type quality to it, as I've been using that descriptor quite a bit recently with this one, and it's interesting to see that in a 6.5%er, because normally that's something you start to see coming out of these beers as they get, you know, usually about the 7.5% and above. That's usually when you start to notice it. So it's interesting that it comes out in the 6.5. It's maybe to do with the yeast, or it's maybe just the way the wheat, the yeast and the oats are all interacting together, but this is a kind of common trait I've noticed both from OO and from Stieg beers, and a few other breweries actually, come to think of it. But yeah, there is a wee degree of that kind of Werther's originally sweetness there. There's a wee bit of that McVitie's digestive biscuity quality there. It's got a bit of a graininess to it in the middle of the palate too, but the sweetness you get out of this, that really lingers into the aftertaste, and that is also something that helps balance the beer out a little bit more. It stops the Chinook kind of taking over, because it really does start, the Chinook really starts to kind of show its force, if you like, the further you go into the aftertaste of this one. So yeah, but the malt base, I think, really nicely balanced. I like how it kind of complements everything else in the beer. So yeah, the more that you drink of this as well, you are going to notice the Chinook kind of gradually making its mark on the beer. So let's focus on the hoppy side of it now. In the back corners of the palate, you do get there is a strong little bit of earthiness there, but the piney resin's really, there's a real kind of big, massive piney resin and sort of spicy, it's quite a spicy pine resin actually. You can feel that all the way from the front corners of your palate all the way to the back, and it starts to creep into the kind of middle of the tongue a little bit as well, and that's really interesting. That's Chinook all the way. It is just a monster of a hop actually. But yeah, I like that. You know, you will notice that when you take the beer in and you actually have the liquid on your tongue, it's very juicy and very smooth and sweet. But yeah, as the aftertaste develops, you get those kind of drier piney resin and big spicy notes that you would expect of the Chinook. I have to admit, I was really kind of almost confused a little bit by this beer from the aroma, because the Chinook wasn't rearing its head, but it really does when you know, the Chinook really rears its head when you actually get into the flavour of the beer. But yeah, the interesting thing is that around the front curve of the palate, the beer's got a lovely light grassiness to it. So the sides of your palate are really just dominated by big bitter qualities, and then the front curve of your tongue, it's just a bit lighter. The fruity side of this beer, of course, comes out on the front third of your tongue, and you can really feel that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer. So if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you're getting that kind of dark, very pungent, kind of grapefruity quality out of the beer. So it really has that it's got a big pungency to it, and you can feel between the border of the kind of middle third of your palate and the front third of your palate, it really is quite strong, that very kind of dark, pungent, grapefruity flavour. But as you move kind of further beyond that, very quickly you get the juicy mangoes that you expect of the Citra. You start to get a few kind of you know, these lighter apricotty passion fruity notes, and those kind of spread further forward, but the mango really does dominate the fruity side of this beer. Those other things are very kind of small subtleties in my mind. The juicy mangoes you get out of this are very nice. But for me, on the front kind of tip of your tongue, as you move towards the very front edge of it, the beer starts to show a little bit of an almost gooseberry type character. It's got a wee bit of it's kind of a lemon-limey note as well, in fairness. It's sort of gooseberry. It's got a bit of a kind of that smoothness that you get from gooseberries, and then a little bit of the kind of pungency and zestiness of lemon-lime actually. That's kind of interesting, but I suppose you could describe the kind of dark citrusy notes you get from grapefruit as being quite zesty as well in some ways. So it's an interesting contrast, the brighter tropical fruits and that kind of brighter zestiness with the darker, more pungent zestiness you get of the grapefruit. So yeah, this beer is really quite quirky in that sense. Big, strong, piney resins and spicy floral aromatic notes in there, and then a very strong grapefruit flavour at the back of the palate there as well. It's a really interesting point to make about this beer. But yeah, on the very front edge of the tongue, you do get a bit of a lemon-limey, you get a bit of that, the grassiness starts to become a little bit more zesty and lemony, but just behind it there's a bit of a juicy limey note. And there's also that kind of just juicy mango flavour behind that. The mangoes are definitely the most prominent fruit in the flavour here, but the grapefruit is the most pungent, if that makes sense. But yeah, the flavour of this beer, I think, it's really nicely balanced. This one, you get the kind of almost aggressiveness and the forcefulness of the Chinook hop, but you get the juiciness and complexity of the Citra at the same time. So this one really does work together quite well, actually. I mean, it'd be interesting to try a single hop Chinook and just see how it turns out, but I've got a feeling that would be just a very, very dank beer. That would probably work better as a West Coast. If they did the 100 series as a West Coast iteration as well, it probably would work far better than it would as a New England. I can't see Chinook making a good single hop New England IPA, but I think someone has. I'm sure Harry at Blue Nose Beer Reviews told me somebody has done that, so yeah, let me know about that in the comments section below. I'd be very curious. But yeah, this one is really nicely balanced, actually, and this is why I love this 50/50 series. It teaches you about different hop combinations. But yeah, let's look at the mouthfeel of this one now. I think we've covered the flavour as much as we can, really. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of the beer then, you know, it's mid-bodied, kind of straight middle of the road, this one. Carbonation is very smooth. This beer, it does have a bit of creaminess to it, but not overly much. There's a wee touch of oiliness to the beer as well, but mainly quite a smooth beer, I would think. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I've got a feeling this one might be about 50 IBUs. It could be the certain, you know, the resins from the Chinook that's giving you that. So I wouldn't be surprised if there has been a bit more. The way that the flavour develops in this one, I think the bitterness increases the further you go into the aftertaste, but I wouldn't be surprised if this beer is, you know, like a 60 IBU beer, 50 or 60 IBUs at minimum. But yeah, as I said, carbonation is very smooth, the malt base is quite smooth, lovely little touch of sweetness to it as well, and you've got some nice juicy fruity characters coming out of the beer also. So I really like how everything sort of goes together in this one. It's really, really nicely crafted, this, but I wouldn't expect anything less of OO Brewing, and this is another nice edition of the 50/50 series. So I will be reviewing these for months to come because there's so many different hop combinations these days. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I think it's a more this one compared to the others, it's definitely more dank, slightly more spicy and more bitter, but it's got a lovely contrast between the kind of aggressive bitter Chinook hop and the lovely juicy fruity complex Citra hop. This one is definitely worth trying if you're into learning about different hops and how they work together. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from OO Brewing. This one was another member of the 50/50 series, the 50/50 Citra Chinook, 6.5% New England IPA from OO Brewing in Hisingen in Gothenburg. Really cool to review this one, and I look forward to the one next month. I think the next one has Nelson Sauvin in it again, so looking forward to that. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out the 50/50 series from OO Brewing in Gothenburg here in Sweden. Slanja, skål, cheers.